a delight it is for you to sing that song for us. I so appreciate it. That was Reach for the Light. As I was preparing this week's talk, I was introduced to that song. And let me remind you of the chorus. I know that we heard it a couple times, but I want to really hear it. Reach for the light, you might touch the sky. Stand on the mountaintop and see yourself flying. Reach for the light to capture a star. Come out of the darkness and find out who you are. This is the theme song from a movie called Balto. Now, Balto is the story of a heroic sled dog. See, in the winter of 1925, there was a diphtheria epidemic that broke out in Nome, Alaska. It was winter. The ships could not get through the ice pack. Plane engines were frozen, and the train didn't go all the way to Loam. People were going to die if this serum didn't get through. The only way to get this life-saving serum to Nome was by dog sled. So, a team of sled dogs, allegedly led by Balto, made a heroic journey across the frozen wilderness to deliver the serum. Now, you can imagine in the winter, in the storm, in the blizzard, the journey was long, it was dangerous. There was actually several teams that relayed the serum. The dogs had to travel through the blizzards, treacherous terrain, frozen rivers. They were exhausted and hungry, but they never gave up. These teams of sled dogs saved the lives of thousands of people. And the people of Nome celebrated the dog's courage, determination, and selflessness. And it's a story that continues to inspire people all over the world. If you've ever been to Central Park, there is a statue of Balto that stands in the park as a reminder of the power and hope and perseverance. This was how important this incident was in the history of the United States. Now, in the movie version, Balto is half wolf and half dog, which leads to his, of course, not feeling part of either group. And lots of things were portrayed in the movie that didn't actually happen. Well, let's just say that, like movies, not all the facts represented are correct in the movie. And even in the picture that we have at the final destination, Balto is in the lead. But sometimes people say, you know what, that was the picture, but actually these other dogs that was just done for the picture. The other dogs were actually just as important. But in the movie, well, we all know things don't actually come exactly right in the movie. And we know more now than we did. See, earlier this year, 2023, DNA test was done on Balto. Balto was actually stuffed and residing in the Cleveland Natural History Museum. But what we found out was that the DNA showed that the actual dog, Balto, shared part of his diverse ancestry with a Siberian Husky and was more genetically diverse than our modern breeds and the working sled dogs. And they were genetically healthier, which meant that, he could do that. Anyhow, in the movie, Balto is an outsider, the classic underdog who saves the day. And the movie is a powerful message of hope and perseverance. It reminds us that even in the darkest of time, in winter, in Nome, Alaska, there's always light at the end of the journey. And we can overcome any obstacle if we only have the courage to keep going. This is the message. Regardless of the facts, this story is true. We all have the potential to be brave and courageous, even in the face of a blizzard, even in the face of a whiteout, even when we are tired and have a long way to go. When we face our challenges head on, we're reminded of our own inner power. And so I love this song. It reminds us also that we are not alone in our struggles. There's others who have faced the same challenges, maybe with little different facts, but the same challenges and have come out stronger. so we can find strength and inspiration in the stories of others who have overcome adversity. So this song has been going over and over in my head all week long, as you can imagine. It just comes up, the little tune comes up, it's like, oh, see yourself flying. So the next time you're facing a challenge, remember the message of the Balto theme song and reach for the light. Now, one of the reasons I was looking for a song about light was because our monthly theme for May is light within the shadows. Light represents hope, joy, love, while the shadow is mysterious. Fear sometimes, death sometimes. The shadow, also that time of being before birth, where we don't know what's going to happen. So it's really the unknown. And although we see light and dark as opposites, they're not. They're very much interconnected. The shadow would not exist without something obscuring the light. And light and dark are the two sides of the same coin. They're both necessary for life, and they both have their own unique beauty. And think about the yin yang symbol, both light and dark, and one within the other. They coexist, and they each have their own traits and characteristics. Think about the cool of the shadow in the summertime, the cool of the shade. And in the winter, we love the warmth of the light. They're actually a pair that work along the same spectrum. And generally, we've learned to embrace the light as good and avoid the darkness as, well, it's unknown and mystery. And so that's kind of scary. And this month, what we're doing is we're learning to appreciate and welcome both the light and the dark for what each of them bring. And that light within the shadows can represent our inner strength, our hope, our faith. It can represent the love and support of our loved ones, the power of community. The light within the shadows is a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there's always hope. Spiritually, in consciousness, light and shadow are distinguished simply by what is either known or unknown. Think about it. Are you in the dark about something? It's unknown. As we become able and willing to move what has been unconscious, that unknown, into the known, the light of that greater consciousness expands and our experiences are increased at every level. See, there's a creative process, and we're born of this creative process, which embraces the mysteries of that darkness in the womb, that space of creativity, the source, the substance, the idea itself. And yet, we are light beings in a physical form, and we operate and move on this tangible plane. And as spiritual light beings living this human experience, we process our thoughts and emotions in the dark, internally, inside, and then we express outward in the light of day as we interact with others and with life itself. So both that inner and outer add flavor to the experience of life. Both have depth and breadth and help shape our reality, and both are necessary for our growth and evolution. Sandra Lessing left a corporate career to follow an unscripted path that led her far beyond what she originally envisioned for her life. This is her story. One of the great paradoxes of life is that we must go inward in order to find the road out of ourselves. That is what life asked me to do 15 years ago. After a long period of trying to run away from dark thoughts and feelings, my body and mind collapsed. And that was the best thing that could ever happen to me. Before this breakdown, I never wondered about what living really means. I just followed the rules that systems like school, family, friends, media were showing. And little by little, I woke up to a much more conscious and fulfilling life. I started to wonder again about everything around me. And I also started to question all the beliefs and ideas that blocked me from living my unique potential. Each time I dared to let go of limiting beliefs, relationships, and careers, whole new levels of spontaneous living opened up to me. Our Science of Mind teaching symbol reflects the creative process of life on the visible and invisible plane. Remember, the seed comes in, the seed, it's a creative idea. It comes into what we call the creative medium. Think about it as the soil. And then form or creative manifestation comes out of that. So the seed is planted, germinates in the inner darkness of the soil. We don't know how it's done. That's the great mystery. The outer form then comes into being, born, built, somehow expressing the idea of the seed. And this is just the way life works, whether we know it consciously or not. So understanding this process and how to use it is what Science of Mind is best at. It allows us to consciously co-create with spirit in partnership, as opposed to just being unconscious and subject to it. And so this external expression and experience, every form expressing or expressed in light casts a shadow. So consider scenes from your own experience for a moment and perhaps, well, look around now and see, is there a shadow? Find a light source. And is there a shadow? Every time there's a shadow when their light is blocked. Now, the shadow side and the shadow work, well, the shadow side is a term used in psychology to describe the unconscious parts of our personality that we reject or repress. And it's often associated with negative emotions experienced, such as anger, hatred, jealousy. However, the shadow side can also contain positive qualities, such as creativity, passion, power. Now, some people say that shadow side is formed in early childhood when we're forced to, repress certain aspects of ourselves in order to fit in with our family and with society. For example, if you're naturally loud and you may be told to be quiet, or if you're always inquisitive, you may say you ask too many questions. And over time, you begin to repress those ideas. And that shadow side can be a source of great pain and suffering, but it can be a source of great power and creativity. And so the light within the shadow, when we integrate our shadow side into our conscious personality, we become more whole and complete individuals. And people spend years in shadow work and bringing this to light. And the first step is always to become aware of the parts of you that you've rejected. And this is not an easy task. I don't pretend that it is. Well, you can do it through journaling, therapy, simply paying attention to your thoughts and feelings, and just start small. Um, Use mindfulness meditations to watch your thoughts go by without attachment. Just imagine they're on a video screen. And maybe just sit in the silence, starting maybe 5 minutes and working up 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Just without distractions, allowing yourself to simply watch your thoughts go by on the video screen of your mind. And if you find yourself following the thought, getting lost in it, then acknowledge the detachment and bring yourself back. This is just the simple meditation process. But by allowing these thoughts to just bubble up, they can be acknowledged and released. Oh, I didn't know that. I remember doing some shadow work at one point, and many of you know I don't have any children, and I never really wanted to have children, which is a strange thing to say on Mother's Day. But what I realized when I did the shadow work is that thought came from seeing my sister have 4 children in 6 years, and then she died. And so that was part of my shadow that's like, oh my gosh, I don't really want to do that. So I repressed that idea. So there's things that come up in the shadow work that are really interesting. And it can be a way to witness emotions that come up and informs your healing work that we all do. So once you're aware of the shadow side, then it's important to accept that. It doesn't mean you have to like it, but it does mean that you accept it as part of yourself. And again, simple to say, not as easy to do. And once you've accepted your shadow side, you begin to embrace it, meaning you learn to love and accept all the parts of yourself, even the parts that you don't like. I had to learn to love and accept that bossy part, which I didn't necessarily like, but it's there. And so once you've integrated your shadow side, you can use it for good. And your shadow side can be a source of great creativity, power, and passion. The American Franciscan priest, Father Richard Rohr, says in his book, Falling Upwards, the closer you get to the light, the more of your shadow you see. And thus, holy people are always humble people. The more comfortable with your relationship with the shadow, the less it reduces the light. So if your visions and dreams have included ones of someday having all of your shadows dispelled, dissipated, or otherwise disappearing from your life, prepare for what might be a little bit of disappointment. Shadows won't be going away in this dimension. But the good news is that multiple opportunities to change our relationship to shadows and darkness happen daily, in part or entirety. And dancing with a shadow is a key to divine human potential. Ernest Holmes tells us this. He says, sitting in the shadow, we may not really believe that there is any sunshine, but the sun would be there all the time. It is there, but we must awaken to it. In truth, the divine spirit has emerged as each one of us, and we can never be other than that light, regardless of appearance, because the divine is within. The surest path to your own answers about the shadow will come from developing your relationship to your shadow. In the same way we think about an inner child and a higher self, we also have that shadow self. And you can develop that relationship by giving voice to the parts of the character you don't care for and would rather not admit you have. And by beginning to make this shift over time, characteristics you wanted to hide might become great strength. So the critical thing to remember here is that there's never an absence of light. Even in the shadow, there is always light. There is never an absence of that first cause, omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent consciousness. The light of our consciousness and the light of the world is what we're working with all of the time. Whether you perceive experiences as spirit expressing, that's in a large part a matter of your perspective. The outer spectrum is on the visible and how we navigate through and engage in life with others and in this world. And it's like that the turtle who can retreat inside and hide in its shell, but it also pokes itself out to move around and see what's happening in the world. God is an infinite presence and an indwelling reality. The silent whisperings of this inner presence come to each as divine revelation in inner communion of the individual spirit with the oversoul. That's from this thing called Life by Ernest Holmes, which I know we studied earlier this year. So we've likened darkness to evil for eons. So we've generally been taught to fear instead of embrace the darkness. The darkness, fertile ground for creation, creativity, the womb. The darkness gives birth to light. And in order to appreciate the beauty of this darkness, we have to unlearn the stigmas about it. So, what if we partnered with the dark? What if we partnered with the shadow instead of fearing it, controlling it, or labeling it as bad? What if we held the unknown with wonderment instead of fear? And these healthy shifts would change our relationship. What if we welcome darkness instead of being afraid or denying it? Darkness brings us relief from that scorching sun, from the heat, from the day of labor. Night signals permission to rest, to be with our loved ones, to conceive new life, to search our hearts, remember our dreams. The dark of winter is a time of hibernation, and seeds grow in the dark, fertile earth. I was afraid of the dark. I was afraid of the dark for years and years. I was afraid of the dark until I was in my mid 30s. And I went to, well, see, what happened was my older siblings told me there were bears in the closets that flanked the hallway leading to their rooms. Okay, I guess they were just trying to keep me out, but I developed an incredible fear of the dark. Even when I knew there were no bears in the closet, I was still terrified. It was kind of like that little boy who was playing outside using his mother's broom as a horse, and he had a wonderful time until it was getting dark. And once it started to get dark, he left the broom on the back porch, went inside where it was light. And his mother was cleaning up the kitchen. And she realized the broom was missing. And she asked the little boy, like, where's my broom? And he told her, it's on the back porch. He said, well, please get it for me. Well, he was afraid of the dark and he did not want to go out and get the broom. And his mother said, don't worry, the Lord is out there. Don't be afraid. And the little boy opened up the back door and said, Lord, if you're out there, hand me the broom. That was me. That was me until I was in my mid 30s. And then a science of mind minister helped me recognize that there was always light, even in the darkness. I wasn't quite as scholarly or intelligent, perhaps, as Elon Musk. This is what he said. He said, when I was a kid, I was really scared of the dark. But then I came to understand that dark just means the absence of photons in the visible wavelength, 400 to 700 nanometers. And then I thought, well, it's really silly to be afraid of a lack of photons. And then I wasn't afraid of the dark anymore after that. So humans like to be in charge and in control. I do. I do. And shadow places are where uh, fear of the unknown resides. And when we don't know, we often make it up to maintain control. But the darkness can be our friend. The darkness can yield insight and clarity. So we learn to embrace the dark. We learn that there is light in the dark always. And the only reason that there is a shadow is because we have obscured the light somehow. And then we shift our attention and approach the shadow, the unknown, from a place of reverence and mystery instead of fear of evil or I don't know what could possibly happen in the dark. It's ominous. So it's like that unborn baby whose cozy and loving home is in the dark, creative, and fertile womb space. And the divine mother principle teaches us about the creative medium that holds darkness as creativity and gestation. It nurtures life in the safe, dark space of love to be born into physical manifestation and light. Brene Brown, in her book, The Gifts of Imperfection, says this: only when we are brave enough to explore the darkness will we discover the infinite power of our light. And so, by teaching the beauty of both the light and the dark in partnership, we invite healing and balance within the light and darkness. Howard Thurman says, in the stillness of the quiet, if we listen, we can hear the whisper of the heart giving strength to weakness, courage to fear, hope to despair. So, in the darkest of times, when it can be difficult to see the light, remember the light within the shadows is always there, waiting for you to find it. I know you'll find it. So let's just take that idea into our meditation today. Reach for the light. Lead me to the light. So as I close my eyes to this outer world and go within, I recognize that there is great light, that great energy in the unseen. There is the light, the spark of life itself. It is that first cause, that omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, divine expression, everywhere present, all of the time. And so, what I know is that light within is within each person, all of the time, every moment, no matter what it looks like, no matter what it feels like, no matter what their personal expression is at this moment, there is that light within. And so, I look for the light. I am led to that light. I see that light. I recognize it on this earthly plane as love, as compassion, as kindness, as energy, as wisdom, as peace. And so I know that if there is an absence of that light, it is simply being obscured by something that is not the truth. That shadow is easily and effortlessly dissolved when the light is turned toward it. And so recognizing that this light, this energy of spirit, everywhere present, right now, shining on this earth, in this earthly plane, through the sun, through the myriad of stars, through divine energy. And so, knowing this to be the case, I know that love is all there is. Any relationships that need to be healed are healed in the light of love. This light is abundant. Any lack or limitation is healed as we shine that light of abundance into the shadow. Divine energy moving through each person is that creative energy through work, through creativity, through divine right action. And so, knowing also that this divine energy is the healing power in the body, I know that all is well. There is love, there is abundance, there is creativity, there is wholeness. And knowing this to be the case, I let it be. I'm in such gratitude, knowing that it is already done, knowing that as I release this word into that divine law, the law receives it, develops it, moves forward, and births it in a way that is the most magnificent. I accept this as it is, and I let it be. And I invite you to join me as together we affirm. And so it is.